Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. It is, again, it's a Friday. Fancy that. It's the 28th of February, and we're still talking about the misogyny. It's the fourth and final part of misogyny. And with us today on the Gin and Tonic Show is Speaker's Corner and Muslim, oh my God, Muslim apostate. And I can't even read the rest. It's too long. The title, the best of creation. Oh, you are the best of creation. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Hi, welcome, guys.
Good evening, guys.
And good evening, everybody listening to the show. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
But hang on, I thought you are the Thunder Jew. What happened now? Why are you the Muslim apostate, the best of creation?
I'm improvising every week in such a way that aligns myself with the reading, as somehow the reading of the Quran is having an effect of me, and there is so much talk of the best of creation, and I'm getting to think that the Muslim apostate is probably the best of creations that the Quran has ever provided the world, the one who directly opposes Allah, His Quran, and His holy prophets. So here I am. What a guest privilege it is.
Okay, well then, welcome to the panel, welcome to the chat, welcome to everybody watching later. It's the Gin and Tonic Show, and thinking clearly, I hate you with a passion, and I'll get to that just now. I will first tell people what we are about. This is a live broadcast, which you can watch later, or you can join us here while we are running, because this is one of the only, no, the only Islam-oriented focused show, English speaking, where people can just hop on, join in, and discuss Islam. So we go on live on YouTube and on Facebook, and we focus on Islam because we know more about Islam than we do about other ideologies. At least for me, this is definitely the case. We address Islam, we critique the bad ideas. Okay, we don't attack, and we definitely don't attack Muslims individually. We use, or try at least, to use facts, reality, and reasoning. And I have to say this every single time. We categorically condemn any kind of abuse, oppression, slavery, violence, or misogyny. We embrace free speech, and this also means criticism, and preferably factual and constructive criticism. If you come and you correct us, welcome to do so. We are trying to be decent human beings. And if you just want to question, correct, or something, you come to the right place. Just talk to us. And we try and let the Quran speak, not the thousands of scholars or whatever. And we do not take any kind of money. This is all free as a service to mankind. Why I said that I hate thinking clearly is because he has graced us with yet another creative opening for the Gin and Tonic Show. Now, the thing is, you probably wish that I could sing, but me too, but I can't. So I can only do this. Springtime for Islam on J&T. We've just done misogyny. We're marching on to prophecy where claims get even more dodgy. And you have to imagine that I'm Hitler singing this, okay? Springtime for Islam on J&T. Allah is happy and gay. Muhammad's got his commandments now. Watch out, dimmies. He's coming your way. Thank you, thinking clearly. I hate you, but it's so nice. I don't know how you come up with these things, but it's really nice. Thank you very much for that. All right. If anybody wants to know something, if anybody
That was
wants to
excellent.
suggest something, come and just talk to us if you have anything. What we're going to do today is I'm first going to have a couple of news things, then I'm going to have a segment on the Quran, and then we're going to go into misogyny and continue with that. All right. If there's anybody else that wants to contribute something, give us a shout. We'll accommodate you.
As always, yeah, if you're a viewer who wants to join us, ideally if you're a Muslim and you want to give us your perspective, I've reached out to somebody tonight. They may or may not be available. I'll keep an eye out and let us know in the chat. We'll also post the link as we go along.
Great stuff. Now, one item which I found quite striking, and it seems that the coronavirus is really hogging, whatever you want to, it's constantly on the news somewhere. And it seems that and I wasn't quite sure, if I asked Rob earlier if he has a word for this, the contagiosity, or whatever you want to call this. I don't know what the proper word for this is. But it seems to be less deadly than the other SARS variants, like the bird flu, swine flu, and things like that. But it seems that it transfers easier. It's just that it doesn't activate as much, and it's not as deadly immediately. But what is quite funny is that everybody is racing to find the vaccine. And now Israeli contagiousness. Rob, that was what you proposed, right? Contagiousness.
Yeah, I think that was the same one. Yeah, you were doing the osity business.
Yeah, it sounds more pompous, I think. So Israeli scientists of all have claimed we have developed a coronavirus vaccine, which seems to be addressing the strand that we're facing right now. And they are now going into testing and see if this works. Now, that would be an eye-opener for me, because it would mean that even though that the Quran and Islam is also scientific, and Muhammad knew all the medicine there was to know, and since Allah, for every affliction, he also presents a cure. He doesn't. He gives it to the Jews to go and propagate this and to save them. And there are already now Muslims coming out to us saying, well, you need to be careful because this is a conspiracy to wipe out all Muslims, because you cannot trust it if it comes from the Israelis. So this is quite funny. The second thing, also related to the coronavirus, is that Iran has quite openly admitted that their God is not so strong and not so potent. It's rather impotent when it comes to nature. And the thing is that a virus, just like a plane crash, is non-discriminatory. It will kill, or it will affect, or it will do whatever it does, and it doesn't care about your favorite God. It doesn't care what you've selected. It doesn't care what you think or wish or want. It just hits wherever it does. It's the way that it is. Now, what has Iran done? They've cancelled Friday prayer. Now, Friday prayer, anybody who spends 5 minutes on Islam knows that the Friday prayer is the main prayer. Prayer in itself is the main action that a Muslim needs to take in order to say, hi, God, that's me, I'm still here, and I'm a devoted slave and everything. So this is the number one thing that a Muslim needs to do, and he needs to do it 5 times a day. And now for Iran to cancel Friday prayer because they are scared that the virus will be transferred or transmitted to other people in the mosques and cause a pandemic within, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran. Then this for me is telling. So first we have Israelis who are finding the vaccine, and then Iran admits, no, our God can't handle this. We need to be the ones who are taking care of ourselves. This is quite strange. The third piece of news, which I find quite interesting, is that Turkey has received something like 6 billion euro from the EU. And now the EU is in for a surprise, because Erdogan has the dictator in Turkey now. He has pocketed these billions of euro. I don't know if he's got himself golden taps in his bath or shower or whatever. When he has decided to open the borders again, because the EU criticized his military attacks into Idlib in Syria, outside of Turkey. And he is now saying, well, EU, if you don't condone my actions in Syria, I'm going to let all those, and we're talking about something like 4 million people that he is at the moment keeping back. I'm going to let them all run into the EU. So this can be quite a heavy thing.
Stops. Just a question as we go. I saw that there was an article on Syrian refugees crossing the border into Europe.
Yeah.
But there's a question from Sydney. And I think Thunderous has briefly mentioned it, but maybe we can all weigh in on that
From
one.
the corner of my eye, I saw Whitney Houston. I don't know why. How can we separate Muslims from Islam when it's the Muslims who are committing all the atrocities allowed by Islam? Okay, it's very easy. What I'm saying is the Muslim is the person who has been brainwashed and indoctrinated by the ideology. So in other words, like Mr. Weinstein said, you get good people and bad people, but for a good person to do something bad, you need religion. And this is exactly what happens here. So you can see that a Muslim, for example, today starts cringing when it comes to slavery, when it comes to misogyny, when it comes to marriage with underage kids and things like that, because they are better than their God. These are the individuals. So I would not go so far and say it is the Muslim who's doing that. I would say it is the Muslim who's been indoctrinated by the bad ideas in Islam, who is then committing these atrocities. So we have Islam that is saying, listen, if you are following me, and we will have a couple of these sentences just now in the Quran. So follow me and you will get rewarded, and be against me and you're going to be burnt. So the problem is that the Muslim thinks he or she is doing something good. Like this woman that was now trying to blow up St. Paul's. She thought she was doing something good for Allah, because this is what the Quran says. This is what the ideology Islam teaches people, that you need. There's good things. Okay, there's good things. Don't lie, don't steal. Be good to parents. Be good to orphans. Do this. So there's a lot of good things that Islam teaches you, but there's also a lot of bad things. And this is the problem. We need to understand where Islam comes from. Okay, my thing is that it was developed around the 8th century as a tool to get people to stop drinking, because the Arabs were heavy drinkers, and to stop womanizing because they were screwing around and getting drunk all the time. So what they needed is fighters. They needed soldiers. So what they came up with was the Judeo-Christian mix, and it was Arabized. Oh my God, I've got a problem with English today. So what happened is the Arab version of Judeo-Christian texts was brought out. In other words, the essence of Jesus, of Abraham, and all these other prophets were taken and were streamlined to fit into the Arab peninsula. And this is what has happened. So if you take that into consideration, you will see exactly where this is going. So they're taking all the normal stuff, don't kill, don't do this, but they're going, doof.
Yeah, I think for me,
we need to fight and we need to do this. So yeah,
I'm critiquing the books, right? Because as you quite rightly pointed out, some people will follow them closely, some won't. Some of them are better than the books. So I'm critiquing the books, because otherwise the argument can always be made, and they do, hey, but they're not real Muslims, or hey, they're evil, they're not doing the right thing, or whatever the case is, but hey, I'm the right Muslim. So to avoid all of that, let's go and look at what the books say, and let's see the most straightforward, plausible interpretation of what a book says. And when it says beat your wife, that's not tickle, that's not cuddle, that's not kiss, or whatever the case is. And then it doesn't matter what a Muslim does, we're looking at the book. But then Sydney asked, then why punish the Muslim people, kill the ideology? Well, I think you'll punish the people that at least in our view, break the laws here. But certainly I think, hopefully I speak for my colleagues here, that we want to critique the ideology to the point that would be my ultimate outcome, that people think critically and eventually they can see this is all fairy tales and then let go of this. That would be the ultimate, fairy tale outcome in a sense for me. But I think when Muslims, certain Muslims, some of them step out of line, those are the ones that you're going to, quote unquote, punish, if you like, or bring to justice, for want of a better word. But certainly we'll critique the religion, and we will critique people who want to defend it in some way.
And for me personally, I think I say this every show, every week now, for me it's the case that the Quran and Hadith define Islam, and not Muslims. As Doctor says, some people behave better than the God and the Prophet that they claim to follow. But having said that, I think they only behave better than their God and their Prophet through their ignorance of what their God and Prophet have said in their so-called holy books. That's why you find a difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. And as we go through the Quran, you're going to find verses that say, unless you're following what Allah and Muhammad say, in effect, you are not a Muslim, you're a hypocrite. And just like the Jews and the Christians, you're no different in Allah's eyes to them. So when you're looking on the world scene, there's only one type of Muslim, the one that's faithful to what Muhammad and Allah say in the Quran and Hadith, respectively. All the others who claim to be Muslim are actually Muslim hypocrites. So the guy down the road that takes his children to school and says hello to you, or he works at the same place as you, and you go on really well with him, he in effect, in Quranic recension, is not a Muslim. He's a Muslim hypocrite going by what the Quran Hadith teach, which is what we'll hopefully bring out in the show if you continue listening, and actually reading ahead with us so you can see these surahs and ayahs for yourself. So that is where I stand on the issue. The Quran defines Islam, not Muslims. So good Muslims are actually, in my eyes, the fundamentals, because when you look at the term fundamental, it means to be extreme in something, or a Muslim extremist. Well, if you're following what the Quran says, then you're a Muslim. If you're not following what the Quran says, or you're taking a part of the Quran to an extreme, in this case, peace and love and tolerance, in my eyes, you're a Muslim. You're the Muslim extremist. So you have to go back to the 6th century or 7th century. And I'm with Stops on this one. Did Muhammad actually exist? Let's assume he did. So if you was around as a good Muslim, your good Muslim mate down the road who takes his kids to school, he pays his taxes and says hello to you every morning, what would Muhammad say to him if he could see his behavior like that with you? Muhammad would have him executed. And the Quran and the Hadith, I'm going to be bringing that out. So stay tuned, because those verses are going to come out. Thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't know who is punishing Muslims. What I do is I critique the bad ideas, and I will go against any Muslim apologist who will try and tell me that misogyny is okay. I will go against any Muslim personally if they try and tell me that slavery can be whitewashed and is acceptable, or any of the bad ideas that we find in Islam. Those are the Muslims, the people, that I will criticize. But I will not generally say that all Muslims are X. This is not the case. So the same as I defined hatred. When I said, yes, the emotion of hate comes up when I think about the Muslims who tried to shoot me. So this is where I feel hatred, but this is not directed at all Muslims. This is directed specifically at a particular person who has done something that is either reprehensible or whatever the case may be. But I will criticize any person, regardless of faith or belief or whatever, if they do something like that. No, you can't. No, you can't. This is exactly the point that we're trying to make. Thank you for your comment. I mean, this is valuable stuff, okay? Isn't it up to the good Muslims to police their own, to de-radicalize the extremists? No, you cannot. This is exactly the point that we're trying to make. Because Islam says, go and terrorize the people. And I will have a couple of sentences today that will do exactly that. That will show how people are brainwashed so that they actually think that causing harm to others in the name of their God, where this God takes the blame. It says, it's not you killing these people, it's actually me. You are just my extended hand. You're just my tool that I am using. So you don't need to worry. You don't need to feel bad about it. It's me who's doing it. And this is the clever methodology that Quran and that Islam is using. So it is not, Islam cannot police itself, because Islam will never be able to change from within itself. It's always the outside, the external influence that will change something. This is why there's now a female who has founded the female mosque, where she is the imam, and people, different people, are taking turns in leading the prayer. These are women who can do that. And this is why there are a lot of Muslims today who are saying, why is it that my wife and I, or if my husband and I, need to be separated in prayer? We have the same God who tells us that we are identical in the eyes of the Lord. This is what it says in the Quran. And then we still need to be separated. So there's a lot of stuff there that is coming from the outside that is now changing the view of Islam. That's why Islam is dying so bloody fast, because people can't handle this. People don't understand that if Muhammad was able to have sex with a 9-year-old, marrying a 6-year-old, and he is supposed to be the role model today, they don't like this. And that is why Islam is dying. People don't like this anymore. People, they realize that this is inhumane. This is not worthy of a human being. You can't have slaves today. You don't have sex slaves today. And that is why there are so many Muslims, even in the Muslim majority countries, who are leaving. They're saying, cheers, I mean, either you change or I'm leaving. And Islam, to change Islam is almost impossible because of the text of the Quran. You have to go and say the Quran is no longer valid before you can change something. And that's why.
And can I just add that that's the whole point, isn't it? That when you start picking at it like salt out of pepper, then what part of Islam are you left with? If you don't agree with the hell doctrine, then that's basically 1/4 of the Quran eliminated. Then when you start taking the verses that repeat themselves, that's taking another portion of the Quran away. So what really are you left with? When Allah says the worst of creation, non-Muslims are the worst of creation, you're basically challenged. And you say, I don't agree with that as a Muslim. I don't agree when the Quran says non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. You're in effect saying, I have a better moral standard than the God I worship. So in effect, you're saying you're better than the God that you're worshipping. So at what point are you still Muslim then, if you're making that statement? There was also another principle I wanted to bring out. It's one called the principle of communal responsibility. If anybody knows anything about that, what that is if you identify yourself with a particular ideology or a manifesto or a political party, once you've identified yourself with the ideology or party or manifesto, whatever that goes and does, you are then guilty by association on principle of communal responsibility. And that's the same thing with Islam. If you make the claim that you're a Muslim, then you're guilty by association with Islam and all the things that the manifesto claims that it wants for mankind, which are things like kill non-Muslims, so on and so forth. So there is no way of separating the Muslim from Islam. He is either a Muslim or he is not. And it is that black and white or binary.
And the thing is that, Aurora Dawn, why do you insist on writing in all caps? I cannot read, for example, a sentence all in caps. I don't know why you want to insist on doing that. Anyway, what we're trying to do is understand what is the problem with Islam to make it apparent to a Muslim what is going on. And this is the way of doing it, to be fact-based, to not to scream at people, not to try and make people look bad or something. No, we're trying to look at the ideas in Islam and identify which are good and bad. I mean, we've had a whole show only on good things in Islam. So I'm not, shy of saying if there is something good, and I will acknowledge that it is good. So I will also identify and shout out if there is something bad. And this is what we're doing at the moment. We're talking about different themes every month where we are looking at the bad ideas, because people are constantly asking, well, what are the bad ideas in Islam? Well, misogyny is one of them. So people say, well, show me something misogynistic. Well, we've done that now for the whole month. For 3 shows, we've shown people this is bad in Islam, and we're going to go to the top, I think 11. Because last week we had Faye on, so that we changed things around, and that's what we're doing today. All right, then let me go. We'll do 15 lines in the Quran. And what I'm doing is I'm not going to go through the whole text, because we did this last time and we got bogged down, because then you look at each sentence, you look at all the words, and you look at the tafsir, and then it's a very, very slow thing. So I'm just giving you the condensed, the Reader's Digest version, as it were.
Do you want to put it up on screen at least to read it, even if you don't stop?
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
We'll make it. We'll share this. Put your screen ready to go there.
Good idea.
And just go through them all. I suppose you can do it on Quranic. There you go. There you go.
So, okay, let me just take the names out. No, not banners, not this. There we go.
Are you, just so I understand, are you reading the next series of verses in Surah 4, or are you?
Oh, sorry.
You've got the wrong thing up.
These are the misogyny sentences. Sorry.
We'll come back to that, right?
We'll come back to that. Let me put this back again. I do not have the 15 sentences on
Oh, I can do
because
that
they're
quickly
just
then.
okay. Look, it's chapter 4, sentence number 51, and it's Jews are wrong. All right, so this is my condensed version. Jews are wrong. Because if I go to 4 and I go to 51 quickly, I'll just give you an example of what it actually is like. Hast thou not turned thy vision to those who were given a portion of the book? They believe in sorcery and evil and say to the unbelievers that they are better guided in the right way than the believers. Okay, so this is the whole sentence. And I don't want to do that, and I don't want to go to the tafsirs now and analyze this and everything. So I just go 51. The Jews are wrong. Finished. Then 52. The Jews lose. Okay, you have this. Those are the ones whom Allah has cursed, and whom Allah curses never will you find him helper. So okay, so the Jews lose. 53. Jews lose. At 54, Jews envy Muslims. 55. Jews lose. 56. Jews and non-believers lose, and the skin burnt in hell will be replaced. 57. Believers will be rewarded. 58. Trust those whom you can trust. I mean, try and make sense of this. Anyway, 59. Obey God and Muhammad. 60. I don't have a clue what this means. It's something about don't be a hypocrite. But I don't understand the sentence. And this is maybe an example. No, there's a better one on 65. 61. Only hypocrites avoid Allah and Muhammad. It's always both. Okay, it's always Allah and Muhammad. At 62. If they then experience a disaster, they will come running back. 63. God knows their thoughts, so he's going to punish them. 64. Obey the messengers. Both Allah and Muhammad can forgive. Well, I mean, Muhammad will forgive, and then Allah will do the actual forgiving. And then 65, I don't have a clue what this means. It's something about submission. Now, if somebody can help me out on this, because if I read this, I don't understand it. Rob, go ahead. Try reading this.
Well, let's go back. I mean, that was the fastest whistle stop of 15 verses I've ever seen there.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to the tafsir and stuff like that. And I think Thunderous also wanted to
Yeah.
draw attention to it. I mean, we can do it backwards if you like, but I think you've gone through it so quick there that might have missed everybody. I know you've done the summary of it, but that was super quick. So
And
yeah, we
now,
can
if there
read
is
through this
anything
one.
worthwhile, then we can go through it in detail. I agree. Yeah, totally. This is why I said, can you please explain 65? Because I don't understand it.
I guess
Okay, so just if we start at, say, verse 50, yeah, it says, see how the inventor lie against Allah, but that itself is a manifest sin. Okay, so what was the lie that they invented? Bearing in mind, for all the audience, this book, these words that we are reading now, in Islamic parlance, these words were existing before Allah created anything. The argument, there is an argument, did Allah write these words himself, or are these his words, or are these words uncreated or co-uncreated, just like Allah's uncreated? So we don't know where the bloody hell these words come from then, if they don't come from Allah. Whatever you want to believe is irrelevant. These words were before Allah created anything. They were there with him. So you have to ask the question, why is he not putting detail in this book as far as the final revelation is concerned? So when he says there in verse 50, see how the inventor lie, what is the lie? No information is given as to what the lie is that the Jews are purporting about Allah. So that's the first point I want to bring out in 50. And as we go through, I'll probably bring out more points in each verse, yeah?
cool.
I wanted to avoid that.
Oh, okay, fair enough then.
Because then we're doing exactly what we did a couple of months ago, where we then spend time on each and every sentence and analyze each and every sentence, go through the tafsirs, then it gets boring. Because, I mean, you know, if 52 lose, 53, they lose. I mean, how many times are you going to look at this? This is why we said, no, let's not do that. This is why I thought you have like highlights where you take out of these 15, let's 2 or 3, where you say, yeah, this is a high one. Then what we do is just take a look at those which are really bad or good or whatever.
Okay, 56 then. Those who reject our signs, well, we don't know what the bloody signs are yet. We've not seen anything or read anything so far. We shall soon cast them into fire. As often their skins are roasted through, we shall change them for fresh skins, that they may taste the chastisement. But Allah is exalted in power. Wise. For crying out loud. When you're talking about hate speech, and hate speech is something that's now becoming illegal. Even a thought of saying something bad is now becoming, something that can be challenged. How can you have an ideology on a bookshelf freely available to anyone when the implication of verse 56 is all non-Muslims, this is your future? At what point is that not hate speech?
I think we can class it that way. Well, I mean, I don't accept hate speech per se, but if we are going to play by those rules, then that's the whole point, isn't it? Anything that we could deem as unpleasant, we could call hate speech, and that's the slippery slope that's.
And then this goes back to the point that one of the is it Sidney Winston that brought the question out, where if you can separate Muslims from Islam. Well, you can't, because the Muslims got to agree with that verse. I agree that this is a just punishment, but it's got to agree it's just punishment because it is Allah's decree that this is going to happen. So I agree with my God that this is what's going to happen to non-Muslims. That is, in effect, what you have to say as a Muslim. You have no choice. So all your Muslim friends that are down the road or that you work with that are nice people, you show them that verse. Do you agree with it? Okay, so what people are they? Non-Muslims. I'm a non-Muslim. This is what your God decrees for me. Do you agree with it? He has no choice but to say yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good verse to ask, and like you've pointed out, and Stop says, and I think Sydney was pointing out as well, that's the sort of verse that you would then put a Muslim in an uncomfortable position to try and rationalize that, because at least some Muslims that I'm sure we've all encountered wouldn't want that on non-Muslims. No. But then again, they've been more sort of westernized. They have, I'd say, a higher morality than their book. They probably have never read this, and even if they did, they'd have some level of discomfort. Or you'd have the what we might say is the consistent version, which is just, hey, yes, if it says it, I've got to agree with it. At least that sort of person is consistent. But I suspect there's at least some Muslims who are going to be very uncomfortable with that simply because you're rejecting it. But they have to accept it.
But the thing is, you see, there's a clever way out as well that I've noticed with the people I work with, and there are some very nice Muslims in there. But they're only nice through ignorance of what the religion teaches, because some of them will say, I've read the Quran. So what I'll do then in front of people, I'll normally do this when other people are in vicinity, because they try to sound smug and pious when they say they've read the Quran. I will actually say the Arabic namaz in Arabic, and I'll say, could you translate that for me? They'll say no. And I says, well, how can you tell me you understood what the Quran says when I've just said to you the namaz that's repeated 5 times a day, 35 times a week? So you've read a book in an Arabic language that you yourself don't understand. So you have read it in a language, but you don't understand the language. So you don't understand what you've actually read. So they can say they've read the verse, which is probably true, but did they understand what they read? Clearly not. And it's the same way when you look at, say, French. French is used as a language, uses English symbols. So you can, anybody can read the French language, or just about. But do you actually know what you've read just because you've been able to pronounce a few words? No, you haven't. And it's the same thing with Arabic.
Okay, so this is a frequent problem. But yeah. Is there anything else you want to point out? Anything like even more of a disaster? Because my version of this sentence, remember, was that Jews and non-believers lose, skin burnt in hell will be replaced. That was my summary of this sentence number 56.
I just like the two sides of the same coin, because in 56 you've got that, and in 57 it turns around and says about for those who believe and do good deeds, obviously in Quranic Islamic recension, we shall admit them to guard us with rivers flowing beneath their eternal therein. They'll have companions. This is talking about misogyny again, so we go back to the theme of misogyny. Companions pure and holy. Who's that talking about? Who are these companions? Stops. You know better than I do.
Well, they have different versions. Number one, it's the high booby girls, and it's the young guys.
High boobies, 72 of them with transparent skin, I do believe, and they are perpetual virgins as well.
So there, I said believers will be rewarded. So this was my Reader's Digest version. Okay, can we, Rob, just go to 65, and maybe somebody can help me and make some sense out of this.
Okay, so let's read both of them. Sahih International. But no, by your Lord, they will not truly believe till they make you, O Muhammad, judge concerning that over which they dispute among themselves, and then find within themselves no discomfort from what you have judged, and submit in full willing submission. Yusuf Ali. But no, by the Lord, they can have no real faith until they make thee judge in all disputes between them, and find in their souls no resistance to thy decisions, but accept them in their fullest conviction. It seems to me that, a superficial reading there, again, we can discuss it, but seems to suggest, certainly the Yusuf Ali version is, they can't have faith. Now, is it talking about Muhammad or Allah there? Until the judge in all disputes between them. Presumably it's Muhammad.
Well, the thing is, even if it's Allah, Allah's given them a command to follow Muhammad. So it doesn't matter if it's both of them or Muhammad or Allah. The effect is still going to be the same way. The conclusion is still going to be the same thing. You listen to what Muhammad says. And this goes, so that asks two questions then. For the Quranist only, right, which is impossible. You cannot have the Quran without Hadith. But let's just assume that, for those who think that is possible, though it's impossible. Well, this ayah then is only valid for the lifetime from the moment it was revealed till Muhammad's death. Then it serves no purpose. So why was it in heaven for thousands and thousands of years for only to have, say, a 10-year lifespan? Why is it there now? What's the point?
Well, presumably I'm going to, if I play devil's advocate, a Muslim might say, but hey, if you take into consideration the Sahaba, the Sunnah, the Hadith, and the Quran, you have all of this. So if you follow whatever that between all of those sources, if you follow all of that, then, you would have faith, right?
That's my point. So that's where it goes back to, you cannot have the Quran without the Hadith, because that's where you get what Muhammad has said in the Hadith. So this strengthens the authority of the Hadith. It doesn't put it to the side. It is, in fact, like I've often said, Islam stands on two legs. One leg is the Quran, one leg is the Hadith. And this verse solidifies the support of the other leg, which is the Hadith. So you can't have one without the other.
And Marjana, it's actually even worse, because only 0.0001% of the population actually has studied the Quranic Arabic. This is the problem, because today's Arabic is even different than the one that you find in the Quran. So today's standard mean Arabic is different. And so it's a very, very low percentage of Muslims who have studied ancient Arabic, because some people say, I'm a native Arab speaker. Well, that doesn't tell me anything, because which one? Is it Moroccan? Is it Egyptian? Is it Omani? So there are different versions of Arabic, and the mean standard Arabic is not, totally identical with what you find in the Quran. So there's a lot of stuff there. So a Muslim telling you, well, you first need to go and learn Quranic Arabic before you can learn the Quran is ludicrous, because as soon as you go and say, well, I have now learned Arabic and I know that it says that you should beat your wives, they will tell you, well, you've got the wrong version of Arabic. It doesn't say that, because they go and interpret it and they have different interpretations of what it is. So it doesn't really make sense to learn the language. But I was actually waiting for somebody to tell me what 65 is actually telling me, because it doesn't say what is the dispute. It doesn't say what it is that is going to be judged. It doesn't say whatever is going on there. So there's a lot of sentences in the Quran like this which do not make sense.
But this is probably, let's assume Muhammad did exist. This will be a suitable verse that suddenly when he needed to sort something out. So a situation that he might be sitting around the campfire telling stories, a bit of a disagreement broke out between two followers of his, and he thought, hang on a minute, how can I resolve this matter? Mysteriously, this verse suddenly comes on the scene just when he needs it. So we might not have the background as to what the context of this ayah is, but we have the ayah that confirms and solidifies his position as far as authority is concerned.
Yeah, but what is the guidance here?
That's the point. We don't know what the guidance is, because
exactly.
Yeah, there's the point, which goes back to what I'm saying. So if this ayah was in heaven for thousands and thousands of years, and it's only relative to Muhammad while he's alive, then why is it around for thousands and thousands of years for it to only have a 10-year lifespan? And that's being generous. And what point is it in the Quran now? It doesn't make sense. Or unless it solidifies the hadith, which is interesting because it kind of solidifies or repeats what it said in verse 59 anyway. Because verse 59, just summarized, it says, if you differ in anything amongst yourselves, refer it to Allah and his apostle, if you believe in Allah and the last day. That is most suitable for final determination. So already he's reinforcing himself, or he's getting his soft puppet Allah to reinforce his position as far as him being the final authority in the matter is concerned. All he's doing is using that mysterious voice that's coming out to him to solidify his authority on matters as far as this gang recruitment is concerned. As it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
This is a declaration of bankruptcy. If you disagree over anything, if a God says something, I would imagine I would not have to disagree over anything, especially if the book says there is no doubt, it's explained, it's clear, everything is there. And then it says, if you disagree over anything, hang on, that says, if I've fucked up, you guys need to sort it out. Go to Muhammad and check what he says, and then the scholars need to go and fix it. That's crazy.
Either, whether Muhammad existed or not, this book is very ad hoc as it goes along. You can see that. I think anybody that's read it will see when you read it in order. Admittedly, I haven't, but you get the sense with abrogation and the hadith. This is a very ad hoc book. It seems to come out, or verses come out like this, as and when Muhammad needed it in his life. I'm assuming in this, as his gangsters were growing in numbers, you had some from various religions, various pagan beliefs, Zoroastrian, pagan, maybe some Jews, maybe some Christians, maybe whatever, and disputes amongst themselves from their cultures, from their previous beliefs and that, were causing tensions. So Muhammad had to have one or two verses come out that, okay, I need to sort this out. How can I sort this out? I'll tell you what, Allah's just told me I'm the final judge and arbitrator on these matters. So if you've got a problem between the two, you bring it to me and I'll sort it out.
Doesn't?
Yeah, I think that's
the 65 also don't. They don't help.
I think it's sort of, it's not clear stops, but I do think that this again sort of reinforces 59, as Thunderous is saying there, about them sort of submitting to whatever decision Muhammad is making, but he's making it appear as if Allah has ordained this to be the case, and so you will follow whatever I say. And if you doubt that, or if you differ, then you don't have true faith, right? Whatever I say goes. That seems to be the message.
I see what you mean.
Right,
yeah.
There's a trick in there everybody's missing that I picked up when I went through it again. There's a trick that you're missing in here. Because if he's saying when Allah and his messenger have decided on the matter, what does that make Muhammad to Allah?
Well, he's spokesperson, right? He's echo.
No, more than that. If Allah is confiding in Muhammad and Muhammad is confiding in Allah and they're making joint decisions and finalizing matters, what is Muhammad to Allah?
Well, presumably they're not doing that, right? Muhammad is supposed to be following.
Huh?
It's an equal.
There's the point. Allah, so Muhammad's now elevating himself either equal to Allah, or Allah's elevating Muhammad to make himself equal to him. It's like a 50-50 partnership. We decide. So so these verses are excellent to use to show Muslims, well, you're saying he's just a prophet, a simple man, but what we're saying here is like a 50-50 joint partnership. And Allah seems to curiously be backing up the hadith more than he's backing up his own word.
Yeah, I mean, I think Muslims can push back on that and just say that, hey, you're reading into it that's the case. What it really means is that Muhammad is just following Allah's instructions and saying, hey, Allah has endowed me with these, let's just call it, my communication with him every so often, but it's really him pulling the strings, or it's him making the decisions. I'm just his spokesperson. That they could push back and say that, I think.
But 150 23,999 prophets have gone before Muhammad, and not one of them has had this kind of privilege of being co-equal, though. So I'll push back and say, well, we've never had this with any other prophet, and you've had one of the 123,999 of them.
I'm just not seeing it, but again, maybe because Stops, you seem to agree there. Just share with me again. I could be missing something. I'm totally up for that. How are you getting it that they are co-equal here? Which part of that
go to
tells you that?
59. It says obey God and Muhammad. 61, only hypocrites only avoid Allah and Muhammad. So it's go to 64, obey messengers, but also Allah and Muhammad. So it's always the team.
Yeah, but again, I think Stops, a Muslim could easily say, yes, sure, it's saying the two of them, but the Quran would be quote unquote. And again, I'm not saying this, but a Muslim could potentially say, hey, but I think it's very clear in the Quran that when it says Allah and Muhammad, it's simply, that's just to tell you that these two are in communication, or at least that it's a one-way communication, if not both ways. And so whatever the Prophet says would in fact actually be Allah's words. So although it's using both their names there, ultimately the Prophet wouldn't do anything that Allah hasn't instructed upon him.
Then I would turn around and say, then you've got no choice. But if you're going to turn around and say that to me, then you have to take the hadith. Because if you're going to listen to Muhammad, the only place you can listen to Muhammad, if the Quran is the word of Allah, is to go to the hadith.
Yeah, well, like I agree. I think the Quranists have got a hard time just going with the Quran themselves. And if we have a Quranist, then there's a few I've spoken to on Hangouts. Maverick, aka Ahmed, is a Quranist. There's another guy, Ottoman. Genuine Ottoman or whatever his name is, he's another Quranist. So there are a few out there. I mean, if they come on the show, then yes, I guess we could have a show on how they attempt to justify this, and then you would have a good reason to pull these up and say, okay, guys, well, what do you do now? How do you move forward without the hadiths? How are you going to get the answers here? Because they're not all in the Quran. I think you've got a good argument there.
Look at the sentence. Look, the messenger Muhammad tells God what to do.
Where do you get that, Stops? Just tell me which part.
The messenger asked forgiveness for them.
Yeah, so he asked for it, yeah.
Okay, so the messenger tells God what to do, and then God does it.
I think you're reading into it. They're going to say, I mean, it clearly says he asked. It didn't say he told them.
Yeah, okay, but look at the consequence. They would have found Allah oft returning, most merciful. In other words, whatever the messenger asks for, God grants.
Well, that could well be the case, but I think it's, I mean, again, I'm just being your devil's advocate. I think you'd have a hard time saying that he's commanding it, what he's asking for, because they're in alignment. They could just argue that, hey, he's in such an alignment that what he asks, obviously God knew what he was going to ask, and because they're in such great communication with each other, he's going to grant because, hey, he's the great prophet of the time. So I can see what you're trying to do. I just think that they could quite easily say, but it says the word ask. But where I think this could be strong is saying, hang on a moment. Okay, so you are going to take that word literally as ask, because you could make that argument as you've done, Stops. But where I think that would be even stronger is going, okay, so you're taking the word ask. When we point to other verses in the Quran which clearly say a word, then you guys are not in the position to go and say, well, it doesn't really mean beat, or it doesn't really mean that. You have now said it means asked here. Otherwise, yeah, you could. So you could actually use it in that way. That could be another way of using this.
I think
there's Ahmed in the chat now doing his usual spin. It's all a matter of translation. They can't. For 1,000 years, people have translated this, and they have no clue until Professor Ahmed comes around, and he is now going to tell us what it really says, because it's all. If Ahmed, let me be very, very clear. If your God is so incompetent that your God can't even write a text that is clear to people, that needs to be reinterpreted, retranslated, and every 50 years somebody else finds another different translation for it, why do you worship such an incompetent God? That's not a God. That's a fool that writes a text that cannot be understood by people, that needs to be retranslated every couple of years to match what the people wanted to mean. That is not the work of a perfect God. That's how easy it is. And what you are doing is, if you are showing your God up to be an incompetent fool, that's what you are doing at the moment with the way that you are, I don't know, arguing, or what you are bringing forward. The Quran is in Arabic, gentlemen. Well, who the fuck cares? If this God would have wanted me to understand it, he should have written it in a language that I can understand, or given me the ability to speak the language that the Quran is written in, or even better, programmed it into my mind.
Hindu historian asks, they can only be understood in Arabic. It isn't used to defend polemics against any other religion that I know of, Greek, Hebrew, or the Bible, Sanskrit, Hindu scriptures. You're quite right. And that argument has been used by me time and again. When you're challenging Muslims, or should I say, when Muslims are challenging other religions, whether it's Hindi or written in Hindi Sanskrit, or whether it's in Greek or Hebrew or any of the Oriental languages, you don't find the problem of translation. The only time the problem of translation ever comes is when you're speaking about the Arabic language. And this is all down to the fact that, one thing, the Quran isn't made clear, and two, when you do read it and you have the translations, the Quran gets exposed. When it says beat your wife, it means beat your wife. It doesn't mean tickle her with a toothpick. And this is where Muslims in the past 50 or 100 years have had to start come out with elaborate things like, you have you read in classical Arabic, you need to read Arabic, you need to understand it in Arabic. And then you have the miracle of rhetorical devices, where one Arabic word can now have 10, 15, 20, 100 meanings. So each surah in the Quran can have 100,000 different interpretations, because the Arabic language has 4 or 5 different meanings or 10 meanings for each word. And this is only a miracle of the past 50 years because of social media, the internet, YouTube, websites, where people are getting access to these books now, and they're able to read it for themselves. So Islam is now on the back step. How do we defend ourselves against this tide of movement of people criticizing our prophet, criticizing our God, and criticizing our scriptures? Well, the only argument we can have left now to challenge that is the miracle of reinterpretation of the Arabic text. And you'll also notice when Muslims are saying, oh, you're reading it wrong, this word means this and this word means that. I have always said, I'll fund your fucking ticket to Saudi Arabia. It'll only be one way, but when you go, make sure you write your will first, and you take your argument to the mullahs over there. I don't think you're going to be existing long on this planet if you take your argument over there and you argue with them, because they're the ones that have authorized the translations. And somehow you people come on the show and you write your little comments, and you make little comments on your own videos as well about how the Islamic language has not been correctly translated. But you yourselves have not written a new version of the new Arabic Quran written in the way that you think it should be read in. It's just keyboard jihadists with Mickey Mouse token arguments, because they don't have the strength of character to look at their own religion and actually see it for what it really is. They're Muslims by rote. I'm born Muslim. I've got no choice but to stay Muslim, irrespective of the arguments that are thrown against me. I've got to stay this religion. Otherwise, I'll let down the community, and I'm just too much of a coward to stand to scrutinize this book like other people are doing, and actually turn around and say, and look myself in the mirror and say, I've got to agree with this shit. Because as a Muslim, like we said from the beginning, you've got no choice but to agree with it. And if you don't agree with it and you still identify yourself as a Muslim, then it's communal responsibility. There simply is no way out of this. Oh, and as a conclusion, if you want to play the phonic fallacy, in Hebrew, Allah is a mouse. So if we're going to play that game, you're worshipping a rodent.
Yeah, I think the main thing is
no,
go
Rob,
on.
go.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same thing I've always said, Maverick. You cannot say that, hey, the English translations are insufficient, because if they are insufficient, as the other commenters have pointed out, and I've said for years, and I'm sure Stops and Thunderers have been saying for even longer than that, if you're going to say that that's insufficient, or there's errors there, then you must acknowledge, if you're intellectually honest and consistent, that anybody that does not understand Arabic well enough should not be a Muslim. And in fact, people like Jordan M. and everybody else that has become Muslim, you should be actively telling them to deconvert and not call themselves Muslim until they have read all of this into, quote, your Arabic, gone to look at every root word, understood what it meant throughout the entire Quran, which would take years, I would imagine, to do. I want to see you being consistent and saying to every Muslim, if you do not understand Arabic, please go and deconvert immediately, go and do this, and then come back and tell us that you're a Muslim and the reasons why.
Fastest growing
The other
religion
problem-
in the world. Oh, you're having a laugh. I mean, 1.5 million Muslims. You take out the ones that can actually read Arabic and understand it in the way that Allah is supposed to reveal it. How many people do you actually have then? 1 million, 2 million? That means the rest of the Muslim population are fakers.
And the other problem is that what Ahmed is doing at the moment is he's showing how Islam actually clouds your mind, that you are not able to think clearly, you cannot have a rational and logical thought. Because look, if we are looking at people who have studied ancient Arabic. That's what they've done. And they have provided translations of the Quran after having studied all the root words, after having studied the Quranic Arabic. And now what you are saying is, even though those people have studied Quranic Arabic for decades and have provided translations and have provided the contents of the Quran for us, they are wrong. And now what you are saying is, I need to do the same thing. And if I come to the same conclusion as what these professional translators come to, I would also be wrong, because you, who has not studied Quranic Arabic, are telling me that it is wrong because you don't like it. It is not a matter of providing a correct translation. It is providing a translation that pleases you. It's not a matter of studying the language. It's saying the right thing that emotionally agrees with you. That is the whole point. All right, can we stop this discussion?
Yeah, I think that's not going to go anywhere. You're shooting yourself in the foot with that view.
Exactly.
And even if you do go and understand every word, especially if you take the corpus, which is the word-for-word translation with the what the words mean and how the grammar fits, you won't understand it from there either. It will be to virtually everybody incomprehensible to English speakers. That's why Stops and Thunderous have quite rightly said these well-accepted translations are by linguistic experts, and you're coming here saying they're wrong. Now, you could point out an error. That doesn't mean that they're all entirely wrong or they should be disregarded. And if your claim is that everybody has to go and understand Arabic, then I do want to hear you telling everybody and asking every single Muslim you come across whether they have gone to read the Arabic and have confirmed every single word or verse is in fact correct. When you've done that, or they've done that, then you can come back and talk about it. And if you can point out where there's a verse that we read in English in Yusuf Ali or Sahih International that's wrong, and we can see it's wrong, we'll acknowledge it. But again, pointing out that one verse is wrong won't mean that the majority, or if not all the other verses, are quote unquote an accurate translation. But the other point to make with this as well is that Allah foresaw all of this. And Allah seems to be the agent of confusion here, because the majority of people do not speak Arabic. And if he knew this was going to happen, then what's the point of this? And if the point is a test for everybody to go and understand Arabic, then again, he's setting a bar that virtually nobody is going to do. So is this, I think the evidence would then clearly point to this is a malevolent or a trickster God that wants the majority of human beings to go to hell, because the majority of human beings are never going to go and read or understand or learn Arabic or check every word against that. They're going to accept these linguists as well accepted, well studied, and giving the most honest interpretation they can. Plus, there's a number of translations out there, so you can cross-check it anyway. But if that's the case, Ahmed, then I want to hear you as well telling every Muslim not to be on these hangouts, not to be going and doing anything else. They should be at home when they're not eating and sleeping, reading and trying to understand their Quran. I'll wait for you to do that.
Yeah, but you see, this is the whole point. Look what he's writing now. The typical what about? What the fuck? This is a useless discussion. All you're doing is you're making a fool of yourself and your God. And that's not very clever. All right, let's go take a look at the sentences that we were talking about, and this is now in misogyny. Let's go back to what we're talking about. Because let me just see how I can get more of the screen on there. Is that enough? Because if I have it, are you clicking the same time as me? Because like this, yeah, but like this, the top part is missing, and that's why I was looking at this way. I think this is easier to read. Okay, if if we look at the way that the Quran argues the way women are treated, the way that the hadiths, the way that the Sunnah portrays women, we've seen that there is this misogyny, this prejudice, this hatred of women, where women are seen as the temptress, where women are seen as the ones that you are supposed to avoid because they can tempt you and they can make you do things that you don't actually want to do. What I said, let us go and take a look. Let's go back to the Quran, because in Bukhari and in all these collections of what Muhammad said, it is very, very obvious how much Muhammad was afraid of women. But let us go to the Quran and see what kind of a collection of sentences we find there. Is there so much of this man and women are identical, equal, equality everywhere, and there's only one or two sentences which say the opposite? And I've just selected a couple here. It's not all of them, there are more, but this is just my top, I think, 11. So 223 says, your wives are as a tilth unto you. So approach your tilth when or how you will. Now, tilth is just soil that is ready to be, what do you call it, planted? Soil. What do you call it if you plant something in the soil?
Yeah, it's sort of planted,
So-
plowed, sown.
Well,
Yep.
it's after plowing, just before you sow the seed. Okay, it's that. I don't know if there's a word for that. So this is the tilth. So in other words, what your wives are just a prepared piece of ground that you need to put your seed into. So this is like an incubator. It's like a machine that produces children. And now, if you think back what I said in the beginning, this is exactly what they wanted. They wanted the women to give birth to as many children as possible because they wanted more soldiers. And this is exactly what they are doing. Approach your tilth when or how you will. Now, unfortunately, this is not the way that it stays, because then later in the hadith, this is being modified and adjusted. Somebody was taking a breath to say something.
And yeah, also when it says how you want to, I mean, what I remember a while ago when I studied this, it was also because of the sexual positions that the men wanted to take with the women. I think if I remember correctly, they didn't like the idea of certain sexual styles or positions or how to conceive. I think there was an old Jewish proverb, you know, if a woman conceives while being in a doggy position, she'll give birth to a squint-eyed child.
Yes. Or this one.
And so there was also, I think, correct me because you just brought this to mind. There's also a hadith, maybe, if a man wants to have his wife while he's riding a horse, she's to give in to him sexually. Right now, I stand to be corrected on that, but I remember it being a real hadith. So, but anyway, the point is, she's just a sexual object, and he can have her any way that he wants her, whether she agrees with it or not.
Okay, there are two things that you're not supposed to do. One thing is anal sex, and the other thing is that the woman is on top. This is this position here, because then this makes the man effeminate. I mean, not only is the hadith saying, well, if you come first, then it looks like you, and if it's me, then it's my child. But the problem is that the woman on top is to be, what do you call it, refused or avoided at all cost. Because you can approach your tilth how you will, but not with the woman on top and not anal sex. So then you have different, I think it's the Hanafi or the Shafi, I can't remember who. This madhab, this kind of jurisprudence in this region, they are saying that even oral sex is not allowed. So the funny thing is that this God is very much concerned with what people do when they are naked, when they are having sex. There's a lot of rules on this. Okay, welcome, Sydney.
Hello.
Yep,
Ah,
you're
thank you
live.
very
Do you want to
much.
comment, ask, or do some? What is on your mind?
On my mind is listening to you people blame Islam and you seem to totally let the actual people who practice Islam off the hook totally. I don't understand that.
Do I need to explain it again, or is that just that you want to say this?
Well, in the beginning, when you started the show, you said you absolutely are attacking the ideology of Islam, and absolutely not blaming or talking about any Muslim people.
Correct.
And I have a problem with that.
Why?
Because the extremists are extreme because of what they read in the Quran and the Hadith, whatever. But the
what
good
is an
Muslims,
extremist? What is a good Muslim and what is an extremist? They read the same book.
I understand. But the good Muslims, as you say, that they don't proselytize, they don't incite violence, they don't scream hatred. You know, they're just regular people, good people. But they read the same book. And the extremists, on the other hand, they also read the same book. So why did you disagree with me when I suggested it would probably be up to the Muslim community worldwide as a whole to rein in their extremists, kind of like the Jews do?
Well, number one, they can't. Number two, they don't. And number three, as you just pointed out yourself, there are good and bad. There are different versions of Muslim. Because there are so many different versions of Muslim, we cannot generalize and say a Muslim equals X, because every Muslim is different from another Muslim. So what we are trying to do is we're not trying to generalize and say Muslims are terrorists, or bad or good or whatever. But we are saying is that everybody takes their own interpretation from the text. And this is why we are taking the text, analyzing the text, and saying
Okay.
these are the bad ideas. And this is why we are going against the ideas. And then the Muslims can go for themselves and see, can I still identify with
Got
this
it.
God?
All right. Then let me respond with this. In the Old Testament for the Jews, it says to stone the virgins, etc., and all that stuff. But they don't. Jews don't do that these days. But if they did do it, if there was a sect of Judaism, of Jews who were so they wanted to follow the Bible word for word, so they started to stone virgins. Would that be allowed? Would we say, oh, they're just following the book, or would the Jewish community as a whole pull them in, rein it all in, and stop it? And I think they would.
For starters, most of the Jews, if not all of them, follow the Talmud more than they do the Bible now. So you have to understand that there are two types.
I don't have to understand anything yet. That's not an answer for me.
Of course, it's not, because it makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
And
The
of course
the Torah says to stone the virgins. The Talmud is not. The Talmud is just people commenting on it.
Yeah, and so do you understand anything about Judaism? Actually, anything?
No, let's
Yes.
not go into
Yes,
Judaism.
I actually
Let's not
do.
discuss Judaism.
We're not,
Let's discuss
but-
Islam.
Yeah, that's one thing. But the thing is, you see, there are two types. There are more Talmud or Orthodox Jews that actually follow the Talmud. Unorthodox Jews are the ones that follow the Torah. So, and they're very much a minority now. Hardly exist anywhere.
I think, Sydney, your point though is, hey, we're not calling them out. And I think, and I don't know that I disagree with Stops, but I will call out somebody, right? So if somebody says,
Rob, listen to me. There was a guy back in, I don't know, 20 years ago. His name was Baruch Rubenstein or something like that. He was a Jewish American soldier who went into a place of worship where Muslims were praying and sprayed the place with his machine gun. Killed a whole bunch of them. And then the rest of the guys he didn't kill sort of turned around and killed him. But nowhere was that ever, not one Jew, perhaps maybe his sect, but nowhere around the world did anyone say, well, he's just following his interpretation, and you can't really blame him. Everybody blamed him. He was vilified. In fact, that was the seminal moment that I actually decided not to identify as a Jew. I could not identify as a Jew knowing that kind of person who's out there spraying people with machine gun bullets because he's a Jew I made the decision that I cannot identify as a Jew, and
Are
I
you a
now
Muslim?
identify as an atheist only.
Okay, so
You're not a Muslim then.
okay, so where though would you say that he got that idea to go and spray them? Is that in the Talmud or is that somewhere else?
It's in the Torah. It's in the Torah.
Whereabouts
It's
in the
not,
Torah?
and it's an Arab thing. It's a Jew-Arab thing.
Okay, so whereabouts in the Torah is it?
Wherever he read it.
And I'm asking you where, because it's not in the Torah.
I'm not
Yeah.
him. I'm not him. He read it. He read it. He interpreted. It doesn't matter. He interpreted whatever he read. He interpreted the same way as that guy in Jerusalem a couple of years ago who stabbed that pride parade, that woman in the pride parade in the back and killed her. These people are sick, and they are driven by what they read in their scriptures.
So if somebody says, I'm killing in the name of Jesus, and because the gospel tells me to do
They
so.
don't. No, it's not killing in the name of Jesus. It's killing because the Torah or the scriptures say homosexuality is a sin. Kill homosexuality. Kill homosexuals. So that's what they do.
I think though, Sydney, we've got to be a bit more nuanced. If it's a sin, you'll get the sects who will say, "Hey, it's a sin that's God, that's for God to take care of." In the sense, unless it's against the law, then obviously we will, the law will take its course. But if they're in a different country or whatever the case is, at least when I hear people speaking, they will go, "Hey, that's a sin that in the afterlife God will take care of." So I guess you can. I think there's a more liberal interpretation. If it says, for example, beat your wife or do whatever, that's much more straightforward. But if, as you say, you could point out something in the Torah that suggests that, hey, if you are a Jew and the Muslims, are in your land, you're entitled to go out there and kill them left, right, and center, then you would have a strong point that he is, in fact, following a straightforward interpretation. Otherwise, I think he's going to have a much more different one. The interpretation is going to be stretched a lot more for him to invoke that, to say he's going to go spray everybody with bullets. Even the Muslims have a hard time doing that, in that sense, just spraying what they consider indiscriminate people. Just all over the show.
Of course, but people do it, and nothing really is said about it. Their speech, their actions are protected by their scripture. I find that absurd, ludicrous.
Look. No, I can understand your point, but the thing is, if now a guy comes to me and he says, "Well, I want to kill all homosexuals," I can now address that guy and say, "Listen, what you are doing is idiotic because you shouldn't be killing homosexuals." Or I can go and say, "Where do you get this idea from?" And then go and show that this idea is idiotic. So not only have I pulled the rug out from underneath this guy, I have also shown to everybody else that is going, according to these recommendations, that they are wrong, false, and inhumane. So I'm doing two things at the same time without now getting personal and going about this one guy. Because I'm, by just criticizing one guy, 100%. I'm not going against the principle.
When you go after an ideology, I think that's admirable. But then you also have to realize that there are countries like Pakistan, like Iran, like Saudi Arabia, like Malaysia, like Indonesia, and Brunei. I mean, like all sorts of countries that have strict Islamic law and do beheadings and whippings and punishment and humiliation and debasement and all sorts of nonsense in the name of Islam, when the crime, from a secular perspective, is a non-crime, but the punishment is horrendous.
Yeah, I think we would call that out. We would call it out, but I guess they're going to argue that it's consistent with their book, and they could have potentially a reasonably straightforward reading, or at least they're going to implement the Sharia or whatever the case is. But
hanging gay people?
I will call out certain Muslims, and in fact, Stop Spamming got so sick of a particular Muslim last year that we took a break. So it isn't the case that we don't call out Muslims, but the main focus of the critique, at least for me, is the book, because they then have to give us a long story as to how it is that they can have such an elastic interpretation of beat your wife or something else like that. And if they do agree and say, "Hey, yes, but that's what my book says," I'm quite happy to say to them, "Well, you are not the sort of person that we want to have in society. And if you do that in any way here, you either need to be locked up or you need to be deported." If you're an immigrant, you get rid of. If you're a native citizen of this country, it's exactly the same. Those laws don't apply here. You are immoral. I don't care what your book says. In that sense, your book is immoral, but so are you. But oftentimes we Stops and Iron Thunders probably as well, we get the Muslims that want to dance around and tell us, well, it doesn't really mean beat. It means tickle your wife, or it means, hey, you don't have to follow this. Now that's
but it says beat your wife. I mean, it's
hey,
not. It
preaching
says
to
beat
the
your
choir.
wife.
I know. But the Muslim who says no, it doesn't. Now, I don't know whether they actually are just saying that for the sake of saying that, or whether they actually believe it. I'm hoping they believe it, which is what we often say. And you might not have heard us, but there's at least some Muslims, if not more than some, that are much more moral than their book. So we point out the immorality in the book. They are then left in the uncomfortable position of either accepting it and being immoral and being labeled immoral, and rightly so, or denying it and having to do a Saturday night come dancing to try and come up with some other interpretation of what that means. But either way, people who are watching will look at this and go, hang on a moment, there's a problem here. And that's at least for me, that's the people I want to reach. I don't want to, the dogmatists are impossible to reach. And everybody else who's listening, I'm going, okay, hopefully it'll invoke some critical thinking here. Either you've got to accept this and be immoral, or you've got to dance around this and we can see your sort of hypocrisy and the extreme lengths you're going to go to deny this. I don't know whether they really believe it or not, but that's at least the point for me.
But we also gave an example tonight as well about where Allah is going to roast people in hell and give them fresh skin so they can taste the pain again. Now, to the Muslim, who is that in hell? That will be those who do not worship Allah. So the question has to be asked, do you agree with it? If they say no, then they're in disagreements with their own God because they're morally more better than their own God, which means then they're not Muslims then, really.
Okay,
And
but Sydney, what is the real problem? What is it? Because it sounds like you're critiquing us for something that I don't understand. What would you like us to do better?
Well, I'd like you to take a country that actually follows these laws, that actually has their legal system structured around these laws, around the Quran and the Hadith. Say Saudi Arabia. Why aren't you taking a country that is implementing the ideology and taking them to task? Because when you actually criticize the ideology, it's a great exercise and it's a great debate topic, but it doesn't really prove anything. But when you take to task the Saudis who behead people for being atheists or for being raped, and the Iranians who hang kids for being gay, I mean, you don't address these issues. I've never heard you address these issues ever.
we do actually address those issues.
Yeah, definitely. And this is what we're doing at the moment. But hang on, I like going for the bigger picture. I don't like going just for Saudi Arabia. I don't like to go to one country and say, well, what you are doing is naughty, naughty, naughty. What I will go and do, and I will address every single person who is doing that in 56 countries. Because we have 56 countries which are Islam or Muslim majority countries, and there are people within those countries that will adhere to these suggestions on an individual basis. So there will be 50% in one country, 20% in another, maybe 5% in the next. So if we address only one country, the others are not going to feel compelled to listen to this.
That's
so
correct, but you address
to the bigger picture.
Yes, but address the country that is the most extreme, which is Saudi Arabia. They stand head and shoulders above any other Muslim country in the world.
Cut the long story short,
Okay, I'm bringing in, guys, hang on a sec. I'm bringing in a Muslim here, so you can also have him in as well, who's going to give us his views as well. So,
Yeah, but
Maverick,
we've
aka
already done
Ahmed.
that. We've already done that. And the people are then saying, well, this doesn't apply to Saudi Arabia because they haven't fully implemented Sharia. And this doesn't apply then because of that. And that is why we are going into discussions which are futile. That is what we're trying to avoid. And we're trying to go straight to the bigger picture, which is the Quran. This is where everything comes from. That's what we're trying to do.
But who are you trying to convince?
The audience.
Because nobody who takes the Quran very seriously and lives it is watching the show, is listening to me or you.
That means they're not Muslims then. That means they're not Muslims. That's the point. That is the point. If we can bring out these surahs and the Muslim down the road who claims to be Muslim does not want to apply them, then by their own standard of the book that they follow, they are no longer Muslim. Their own God.
We've got a Muslim in. Can you guys hear me? We have a Muslim in here at the moment, Sydney. So here is somebody. Ahmed, you can unmute yourself there. I think you were talking in the background. Here is a Muslim. He can tell you whether he takes the Quran seriously. Most Muslims that I interact with claim to take the Quran seriously. Now, each of them has their own interpretation, but they claim to take it seriously. So here is one.
All right.
This is the flex now.
Hello, Ahmed.
Are you there, Ahmed? Can you hear us?
Which makes the Quran what? Bunch of mumbo jumbo. So I'm like, but the Quran is far from a mumbo jumbo. Though I've read it.
Ahmed, can you hear
And not
us?
only that, how are you going to call
Hello?
a word
He's
Ahmed.
talking.
mumbo
He's
jumbo?
He's talking. He's talking.
Is he
Got
speaking to
background.
us?
He's got somebody's got background.
Yes. Yeah, Maverick is in a crowd somewhere, in a kitchen or something.
You see, this is another thing that I've seen them pull on people. No, it's true to a degree. Hear me out. The way Arabic works is every Arabic word has like something called a root word. So
No,
somewhere
Maverick,
that they
please,
originate.
No. You are not going to lecture us
Every
now
word
on
in
Arabic.
Arabic,
Please, that's not the
They
argument.
like to tell people, oh, one word can mean so
Ahmed,
many.
we are not
it's
going
a,
to
it's
have
a straw
this
man.
discussion.
It's a straw man.
We've done this 50 million times.
It's literally
Please
like
stop.
saying night, dark, black.
Is he actually speaking to
They're
us
all
or is he speaking
synonyms.
to somebody else?
Don't have a
The same
clue.
thing.
No, he's
All
speaking
of
to
them
us.
describe
He's commenting
black
on
and
this
light.
stupid
That's what they
Arabic
all
thing.
describe.
This is stupid.
That's what I'm saying to you. So when they say there's many meanings, all they're talking about
He's saying
is
they as if
synonyms.
he's speaking to somebody else. Doesn't
Now,
sound like he's on yet. Speaking
so
to
that's
us.
one of the tricks they like to use on people. For example, the word Hajj. And this is what annoys me as Somalis because we don't pay attention.
Okay, I'm just muting him at the moment. Stops. It's not clear to me that A, he can hear us, and B, that he's speaking to us. It's like he's speaking to somebody else in the background there, and he's not speaking to us.
Yeah, and he's making a stupid argument with the language, with the words. I mean, this is ridiculous. We don't
Exactly.
want
It's
this kind
totally
of discussion
ridiculous.
here.
I said earlier on at the beginning, or near enough at the beginning, where the miracle of translation with rhetorical devices, where one Arabic word can have 4 different meanings, or 5 different meanings, or 10 different meanings. So you can have a surah with 100,000 variations of what the surah means, depending if you live in a Muslim-controlled country or a non-Muslim controlled country.
Let's just
And this
also
is
welcome
again
in
showing the
thinking
weakness.
clearly. Let's just welcome in thinking clearly. Thinking, if you can hear us, just say hi.
I can hear you. Hello.
Oh, there
Hello.
you go. Hello. Good evening.
I hate you.
I was so looking forward to you singing Stops. I'm disappointed.
Yes, you got to do a lot more than that.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to something that Sydney Winston was saying. There's a pro LGBT mosque in Cape Town, which kind of highlights the fact that Muslims are going to interpret things differently, whether you think they're doing it accurately or not. I think this is one of the reasons that the show says don't attack individual Muslims, because there's going to be different interpretations. And, you know, they seem quite a progressive mosque in Cape Town, so you can't put everybody in the same category.
Yes, but those that are in the LGBT mosque, let me ask you, do the women walk out of there in full hijab and obvious Muslim appearance, or do
No.
they just fit in they integrate into the secular society of the community?
I'm not sure.
Are they visibly Muslim?
Is this
That I don't
important?
know. But I mean,
Okay.
I think it.
Well, then they're not. Then they're not. They're not expecting, or they're not calling out for any prejudice or anything like that.
Well,
They're just regular people.
As far as I understand, I mean, those who go to the mosque, including the gay members of the mosque, they identify as Muslims.
I understand that inside, but you can tell a secular Jew from a Baptist.
So I don't understand the point you make.
Yeah, what I'm
is the
saying.
point?
The point is that you're making the examples that you're giving are puerile. You're giving an
Why is that
example of a
pure?
pro LGBT mosque as and saying, well, you know, here's a small situation here, and they're Muslim, and you can't call them out, and you can't blame
No, that's
them,
not
and
what I
you
said.
can't do
That's not what I
anything. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about the people who incite, they teach, they proselytize, and they promote the atrocities of their Islamic doctrine.
Any Muslim who does that should be condemned. But the point is that there are some Muslims who would also condemn that. And you do have, even if it's only a small example, it is an example of a kind of more progressive outlook. And it might be the fact that South Africa has more progressive gay rights laws than the rest of the continent. But the point is there's another influence there. These people are not renouncing Islam, but they are saying they've got a more progressive vision. So I'm just saying that there are variations. So to lump everybody into the same box is, I don't think
But
it's
nobody's
helpful.
lumping anybody into the same box.
Well,
We're lumping the extremists into the box. That's
yeah,
it.
but Sydney, you criticise the show for not wanting to attack individual Muslims and just focus on.
No, I didn't say individual Muslims.
You said Muslim people. You said the people.
That's right. That's not an individual Muslim. The people. The people are the Muslim people are the Muslim people. There's no individual Muslim. There's no individual Christian. There's no individual Jew. I don't know what you mean by attacking individual Muslims. Give me names, and I haven't given you any names of anybody I would attack.
Okay, all right. Let me clarify. You said that
Zakir Naik, maybe Naik the Snake.
You said that the show, or you implied that the show should be doing more than just talking about the ideology and should be criticizing
Saudi Arabia.
The people who practice the ideology, the people who support the ideology, the people who donate to the ideology, and the people who do not speak up against those who live according to the Quran, but in a non-humanist way. And I think humanism is way more important than the Quran or the Torah or the
Bible
or anything.
I agree, but the point is that this is an example of a more progressive group of Muslims, and I think to just dismiss that is
they are very small. I'll tell you, they're very, very small group.
Oh, of course it is. No, I mean it's a major. I mean, particularly gay rights. I mean that's a major problem within Islam, obviously. But you know, where you do see, even if it's a small group, kind of leading the way with a more progressive view, I think it should at least be acknowledged.
Fine. They're acknowledged and they're certainly not admonished.
Guys, this is not going anywhere. Look, what we're doing is we are criticizing ideas, bad ideas. I am not going to go and criticize a Muslim. I'm not going to criticize a particular group.
Exactly.
I'm not going to criticize a particular country. I am not going to go and take one group out of the whole group of Muslims because it is a diverse group. So what I'm saying, whoever from within this group of over 1 billion people thinks that a woman should stay quietly in her house, then I am calling them out for that. And I don't care what group, what country, what subgroup they are in. It's the bad idea of thinking that a woman should stay at home that I am criticizing. And that is what we're trying to do. We're not going to go and criticize one particular group. And that is what I'm trying to explain in the beginning. We're not going against a person or anything like that, but against the ideas. And that is what we're trying to do.
How about a person who teaches these bad ideas?
That's the Quran. That's the Quran.
No, a person who teaches bad ideas.
So that's
We're not going for the person. I mean, why can't you understand that? We are not going to go and address a particular person. I'm not going to go and say Zakir Naik is an asshole. If he says something particular about a particular subject or topic or something, then I will use him as an example. But I will not have a show on Zakir Naik. I will have a show.
You could have a show on Imam Tawhidi for that matter.
Where does Imam Tawhidi get his bad ideas from? He gets them from the Quran and the Hadith.
Yeah, but he's what you call a Quranist, I guess.
Okay, so it's the Quran that's at fault. The Quran is at fault, and that's what we're doing.
No, hold on a second. Imam Tawhidi.
It doesn't matter who he is. You can have 101 or 1 million scholars for dollars that are teaching bad ideas. Those ideas are coming from the Quranic manifesto. Do you not understand that point? It is the Quran that is the source, not Imam Tawhidi or the other scholars for dollars. And this is not their bad ideas. It is the Quran's bad ideas.
Okay, I think we will leave it there. We're not going to go and take a different stance now that we're going to go against a particular group and dissect that. We're
Yeah, I
going
don't want to
about,
sit here
we're
and argue
talking
with
about
everybody.
misogyny, okay? And I'm not talking about the misogyny in Saudi Arabia specific, but I'm talking about misogyny in general in Islam. The way that it comes in the Sunnah, the way that it is written down in the manifest, in the Quran. That is what we're looking at the moment. I'm not going to go for a particular group, country, person, or any kind of individual in this, but we're always going to go for the origin of where the idea comes from. That is what we are addressing. Okay?
And I think the just to put a final point on that, Sydney, I think the thing is, though, if they're all claiming to be Muslim, how do we establish, if it's Imam Tawhidi, who seems to be this moderate guy that's virtually not a Muslim, who's very almost secular in a sense, and then you have the sheikhs, for example, in Saudi Arabia, they both claim to be reading from the same book, and they both can't be correct because they've got contradictory ideas. So we're going, okay, which of these guys is more closely follows their book? I'll still call out the ones in Saudi Arabia, and I will quite happily say I live next door to Imam Tawhidi. He's going to have a huge battle trying to convince me or anybody else that he's got the most straightforward interpretation. But the only way we can establish who this is by reading the book. So I will still call out other people, and I think Stops will as well. But the book is the source. And so if we go to the source, that seems to be better because, and the other reason, Sydney, is because the other Muslims will say to us, they're not real Muslims, or I don't believe that. That's not what, quote, Islam says. We hear this all the time. So what do? All we have to do is go and look at the book and say, what does the most straightforward, plausible interpretation with the tafsirs and everything else say? Either you are correct or Imam Tawhidi is correct, or the sheikh or the guy that claims to be a bomber or whatever that took some earth. Which one of those are correct? And they're all saying they're correct. So how do we establish? And I think
Well,
we're all
I've
saying
actually
go to the book.
I've actually heard Imam Tawhidi talk about the same thing: who's correct and who's not correct.
Yep, and he has
And
his
his
interpretation,
context,
right?
he puts things into context. He says, when there's a battle and they're screaming to kill the unbeliever, blah 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 blah. That is a context to a specific time period in history. It's not.
That's his
it's
claim.
not. It's not to be taken, forward throughout until the end of time. That's his explanation, and I buy it. I'll say
I
sure.
don't know. Sydney, I don't. If he came on the show here, he would have a very tough time trying to convince us that he's got the interpretation and that it's not for this time. All we have to ask is, where is it that it's clearly stated in the Quran and the Hadith that it's no longer applicable in the 21st century?
He discounts everything but the Quran. He discounts the Hadith. He discounts everything. He says Quran and only Quran. And we can and we can. I think that's the best way to do is to take that approach. Just take the Quran, forget about the Hadith, forget about what was added later, and just discuss the Quran. That's it.
The problem
that's what we're doing.
Well, then why do you mention the Hadiths?
Because
just for completeness sake, this is what I say every single time. We let the Quran speak for itself. We're only using the Hadith for completeness sake. I do not like the Hadith because they're fairy tales and they're contradictory. It doesn't matter what it says in the Hadith. We're just using them for completeness sake in case somebody is here.
I just want to find out for sure, do the Hadiths, were they written contemporaneously or
we're not
they
going
added
to discuss the Hadiths now. No, we are deflecting, diverting. We're talking about all sorts of things. I want to stay on misogyny. This is the theme of the month. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the origin of the Hadiths now, okay? This is what exactly I'm trying to avoid all the time. You're speaking about, I don't know, you're deflecting all over the show, and that's not the way that we work here. We stay focused on one topic, and that's what we discuss, and that's what we talk about. You came here, you said, okay, we should use a different approach. I've listened to your approach. I think we've all listened to it, and we agree that is not the approach that we are going to do. So, or going to take, or we're going to take on board. So I thank you very much for your constructive criticism, but I'm sorry, that is not the way that what we're going to implement here. All right, so can we go to misogyny now?
Absolutely.
All right. So what we've done is we've shown different places, and for completeness sake, I've shown the hadith as well. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the Quran, and I've selected some sentences from the Quran, which I think are pertinent for this case, and this is why I've said what we're going to do is take a look at what the Quran says about these sentences. And the first one was, "Your wives are as a tilth unto you." So we've done that one. This is highly misogynistic because it identifies women only as an incubator, as a means to get more soldiers. Then 228 is very clear indeed. A man is a degree above a woman. So this is against all human rights. This is against all declarations of any human right anywhere. And this is the main sentence, I think, that you can call the origin of misogyny in the Quran. Any other ideas on this?
Well, I think is if Ahmed is listening and he wants to join in, then now's the time. But he needs to be speaking to us and not commenting to other people about what he's listening to. So if you are listening, Ahmed, and you want to come in and tell us that a degree above a woman doesn't really mean that, or maybe she's got a degree from a university, he's got a degree from a university, therefore he's more knowledgeable, or you want to come up with some other interpretation, now's your chance. Because I have heard them try to do this, Stops. So they will have an interpretation that doesn't really mean that a man is better than a woman. It's just the way you read it, or maybe it was just that time because they had to take care of them. We've all heard all of these things, but
Well,
now's
I
the
can play
time
devil's
for
advocate on this one. Look, a degree, you know how small a degree is? It's a very, very, very tiny little measurement. So to say a man is a degree above a woman, it's not such a bad thing. After all, somebody has to lead. There you go.
Yeah,
You
well,
sure you're not Muslim?
Right, then let's go to 228, to 282, where it says so that if one of the women errs, then the other can remind her, insinuating that a woman is not capable of remembering something when it comes to a financial transaction, so that she is more likely to make a mistake than a man because it only takes one man to remain as a witness, or two women.
Right. That point there is lost because it's already been proven in the court of law that women are more likely to be honest in the court of law than men are. So to suggest that a one witness of a man is equal to two of a woman, well, the reality is a woman's more honest than a man in business transactions and such. So that's a flagrant historical.
That's plain misogynistic. That's, yeah, there's your misogyny right there.
And then the same thing goes for the inheritance that we've seen a couple of times, that the share of the male is equivalent to that of two females. So this is also very clear that the male is considered to be the man in the household, the one who is taking care of the women, a degree above the women. So he is the one who should have the share, the majority of the shares, because after all, he is the one that has the burden of the financial taking care of the women. Then in 424, this is what we've already done. Forbidden are married women, except your slave women. So there's a lot of
There he goes.
misogynistic ideas here, because you are not allowed to have sex with any kind of married woman, except if they are slave women, and a slave woman can also be married. So we've done this, so we don't need to do this again. Then in 4.3, it says men can have 4 wives, but not the other way around, because after all, it's the man who is important, and we need to have the man to know who is the father of the child, and we cannot have anybody else making any kind of point here. Any other ideas?
The self-explanatory.
434, that is what we have seen before, is that the man is in charge of women. A degree above them, he gets most of the money because he's in charge. He needs to take care of them, so he is in charge of women.
Stops. Sorry to interrupt you, but would you also like to mention the fact that the mother will get more than the husband if a child was to die?
No. Then in 434, we've seen last time, we had a very clear thing where even if you only suspect that something untoward might happen, you are allowed to take the 3-step process, which is 1, 2, and then finally beat them. That is highly misogynistic, and making it beat them lightly or beat them with a mishwak or something makes it even worse, because it shows the condescending attitude that men have towards women.
Would you
And of course,
would you
would it
guys like to
continue-
be challenged?
And then in the 434 as well, this is something we haven't even looked at so far. Good women are obedient. That is what a good woman is according to the Quran, according to chapter 4, which
obedient
is
in what?
actually
Stop.
the Nisa. The good women
Do you know
are
obedient in what?
obedient.
Okay, but do you know what she's obedient
Ahmed,
in?
I'm not going to go down that line. They are obedient to Allah. I don't care what it says. It says good women are obedient. I don't care
Yeah,
that
but
you
it
want to
doesn't-
spin
but it
it now.
doesn't
They
stop
are
there,
obedient to Allah. Then
No,
in
but the verse doesn't stop
24:33,
there,
it
though.
says, do not compel your slave girls to prostitution. But whoever does compel the slave girls to prostitution, then Allah is forgiving and merciful. And
Okay.
this, I
Can
think,
we
is
can we
so
can we go back to the earlier comment that you made about
No.
women
In
having to be obedient?
33, the women are told, abide quietly in your homes.
But is that in a
Now, if
context? I
they,
mean, it looks like
it
you've just
doesn't
cut a verse
matter.
there.
There is no
Of course, the
context. I don't
context
care
matters.
in what context a woman is supposed to be quietly abide in her home. It
But
is
by the way,
misogynistic.
that doesn't say a woman. I can only see and abide quietly in your homes. And I've never heard an adult say context don't matter. Of course, context matters.
No, it doesn't. Not in this case. This should be a
Why?
God, and
Why
he
does
shouldn't
it
require
not?
a context.
No, but why does it
33:50
not?
says, we have made lawful to you your wives and those whom your right hand
Let me know when you want to be
possesses out of those whom Allah has given to you as prisoners of war. In other words, what this says, that you can have sex with your wives however, wherever you want, and on top of that, you are allowed to have sex slaves which you possess. These are objects. This is a
Where
possession.
did you get
And
that
this
from?
possession comes out of those whom Allah has given you as prisoners of war. So if you go to war and you capture some women, you're allowed to
would you
keep
like to
them
be
and have
challenged?
sex with them whenever you want and however much you want.
Would
Ahmed,
you
do
like
you
to
have
be
any
challenged?
objection? Are you going to say that this is a wonderful sentence and it shows the equality of men and women?
No, what I'm gonna say is which verse are you talking about? We can look it up.
It's
And we'll
there.
see
It's on the
and which
screen.
word are you
It's
talking
on the
about?
screen there, Dad, bud.
Which one?
On this, the only screen, our screen.
Yes, there's a bunch of verses. So which one?
The one that's got the writing on it.
What the hell?
Maverick, how about
Okay.
the slavery ones? The right hand possesses. What
Oh.
context makes that not misogynistic?
Okay, thank you very much. The term right hand possess, I will give you
No,
lot
no, no.
this,
We're not.
it's
We're not
very-
discussing that. We're not discussing slavery. We're
just
discussing
asked me.
misogyny.
Okay, so all right, tell me which one you want to discuss in it.
We are talking about 33:50 at the moment. We have made lawful to you your wives and those whom your right hand possesses out of those whom Allah has given to you as prisoners of war. In other words, you take some prisoners of war and you can go
Sorry,
and
where
rape
did you
them
get
however
prisoners of
much
war
you want
from?
them, because they
It's
are
written.
your possession. So
Where
you
is
can
it
have
written?
sex with your wives and you
33:50.
can have sex with those women that you possess, which are given to you, that God says, listen, I am the Almighty. I'm giving you some prisoners of war. I'm giving you some women. Go ahead and have sex with them. That's what we're talking
where
about.
did you prisons of war? 3350. I have never come across the term prisons of war in the Quran, so I hope that translation is true.
Well, open up your
I hope you haven't
Quran
added
and check it out.
No problem.
This is going to be
33.
about the translation again.
33. No, it's not going to be about the translation. This is about where I think you actually put that in yourself.
Okay,
Yes,
let's
I
check it
invented
out. I have
the
a
Quran.
Quran.
I
Yes,
wrote
well.
the Quran. I wrote the Quran 50 years ago, and I'm just pretending like it's 1500 years old. I know.
Okay, I've got 3350 right in front of me, and the word prisoners of war is nowhere to be found. If you mean nowhere to be found.
Well, it's on the screen. And Rob has kindly
Oh,
highlighted it for you.
Okay, Yusuf Ali has decided to put out of prisoners of war. Okay, don't know why he
It
decided
says,
to put
mine
that,
says
but
captives of war.
No,
And
I've
Sahih
got
International has also done this. So I wonder who is screwing up
where
the
is
translation.
no Sahih International, if you will, as you can see, has put it in what they called in brackets.
Brackets,
So it's
yes.
not in the original Quran. However, I think what Sahih International is trying to do when he puts it in brackets, and the same as Yusuf Ali is trying to do, is they're trying to explain what right hands possess is.
Spoils
However,
of war. There you go.
Okay. Do
Because
you
it's
well,
think
done
that
in
if it
right hand
says
possesses.
this,
okay,
do you think
listen.
that if it were to say that the right hand possessors are people that you can have sex with, is that misogynistic or not?
If I may just finish, I was addressing that.
No, I'm
First and
asking a
foremost,
question.
okay, if I was already addressing one thing, so let me address that, and then I can
No,
address
you're
another one.
talking about the
So
slave thing.
you
We're not interested in the
got to give me a
definition of
chance to
slaves at
speak
the
without
moment.
interrupting me every time I speak stops. What I'm saying to you is the term right hand possess is a horrible translation.
It
Malakat
doesn't
does
matter.
not
We're not
translate.
talking about the translation or the term of right hands possessors.
If I may just finish a sentence
Ahmed,
without being
we are
interrupted.
talking about misogyny. We are not talking about slavery. When
I
we are
do not
talking about
accept.
slavery, be sure to come
I
back
do
and
not.
then we
I
can
do
discuss
not.
this.
I
At the
do not
moment, we're not
accept.
talking about
I
this.
do not. Stop. You gotta let me talk, man. What's wrong with you? You
No,
always
because
do this.
you're
Stop,
constantly
stop, let him
talking
talk.
about something else.
Let
I
him
don't want to
talk.
talk
I'm not
about
talking
this.
about something else. If I finish my sentence, you will know what I'm talking about. So do you mind? I would have
Can
been
you
done
please
by
talk
now.
about
Stop.
the misogyny?
I do not accept the premise that you are laying. That one.
Okay, that is regardless. That's
One.
not the topic
Stop.
at the moment.
Okay, stop. You know what? You're blatantly scared of me, bro.
Let
Keep
him
talking over
finish.
me.
Stop. Let him
You're
finish.
blatantly scared of me,
But
bro.
he's always doing the same thing. He's going to
You're
tell us that
scared
the
of me.
right
No.
hand possessors are not the slaves, so our
You're
premise is wrong.
scared,
So we
bro.
cannot use the sentence because it's not misogynistic, because it's not talking about slaves.
But
This
that's
is
what he's a
stupid.
Muslim. He's a Muslim. He's
Stop.
going to either have to agree with it or he's got to try and deflect it. What are you to expect? Stop. Let him do his.
There's
Whichever
five
person-
of you. There's five of you, one of me, and you're all scared.
I'm on
Can
your
I just
side. I'm
finish?
not scared of you because the first thing
Oh,
I'll
then
turn
let
around
me
and
talk
say,
in a minute. Then
listen,
let me talk in a minute. Then let me get a sentence.
What I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to
Then
say.
let me get a sentence in.
Qasim Al-Hakim on a piece TV translates
Can I
exactly
please get a sentence in?
what your right hand possesses. So you need to go
Five
to Saudi
man versus
Arabia.
one.
You need to go to Saudi Arabia and sort it out with Qasim Al-Hakim, a scholar for $1 who does not see it the way you do. So when you've done that with your scholars, then you can come and correct us on the show as far as translations are concerned.
You
But at
haven't
this
heard how I see it.
the Qurans have got it for us and against you, and your
Five
scholars
versus
have
one.
got it for us and against you. You're one man on
5
your
versus
own.
1. This is sad. 5 versus 1, and you feel the need to speak over me. Really? One dude. Thank you. Bloody hell. Now there is two things that I would like.
Fiery hell
Now
when you skip.
Now there is two things that we need to there's two things that we need to put to bed. Number one, Malakat Aymanukum does not translate as right hand possess. Number one. Number two, the reason right hand possess is mentioned in that verse is because Allah talks about married women who are married not being allowed. Basically, you're not allowed to marry already married women, except for the women who come under the umbrella of right hand possess. Now, what does right hand possess mean? Right hand possess is, you can look up chapter 60 verse 10. Right hand possess is the pagan women who left their pagan husbands upon hearing the message and joined the Muslims. Now, as you can imagine, at that time, the pagan, they were financially cared for by their pagan husbands. The moment they left their pagan husbands, they had nobody to look after them. Hence why the Muslims have been told to basically sponsor them, to serve them according to their oath, to take an oath to look after them and then serve them according to that oath.
So why does it say marry? Why does it say marry?
That is what Malakat Aymanukum means. Malakat does not mean right hand, nor does Aymanukum mean possess. So this particular verse is simply talking about the fact that you can marry them even though they are already married. However, to marry them, you would have to return the dowry to their pagan husband, and that can be found in the Quran.
Come on, that is such
Overdue.
a crock of shit.
Okay, this is why I didn't want to listen to this. Okay,
What
shall we
a
let's
lot
go
of
to the
What,
next
because
one.
you don't like it?
3359.
You don't wanna listen to
Tell
it, you
thy
don't like
wives
it?
and thy daughters and the women of the believers to draw their cloaks close around them. In other words, it's telling the women of the
To wear clothing.
believers that they should draw their cloaks when they are traveling, when they're going somewhere to go and cover themselves. And why is this? Well, they need to
Continue
be
reading.
recognized as Muslims, so that
No,
other
no.
men who are going
Stop.
to accost the women
Stop.
don't do
You're
it to a
so
Muslim, but they
desperate.
can only do this
Stop.
to slaves. This is what the reason behind
Stop.
this
Do
is.
you not know that
Then,
the Quran
Ahmed, you're just going to
acceptable for
you're going to
everyone? Why
derail
would
the
you
whole
lie?
thing. It's
Stop. Why
What
would you
is the
lie when
point of
everybody
letting
can
you
access the
talk?
Quran? No, but why are you lying though? You just added something to the Quran that's not in the Quran. Why did you lie?
That's
It
what it
does
says
not
in the
say so
Quran.
that
Read the
it does
tafsirs. Read
not
the tafsir
say-
to this.
Stop.
Oh my God.
No.
Ahmed,
The
this is
tafsir
terrible.
is not the Quran. I always catch you out, bro. You're so easy. Now
You're
listen.
never catching me out
when
with
the
anything.
Quran-
You're just
the
spinning and
Quran does not say so that you may be recognized as Muslims. As a matter of fact, it says so that you may be recognized and not harassed. But you chose to
that
ignore
is
that
what
part.
I
didn't
said.
you? And the
That is what
reason-
I
and
said.
the reason-
Except I used
the
the word
reason they're
accosted
going-
and
the
not
reason they're
harassed.
going- No, that's
So-
not what you said. You said Muslims. And the reason, hold on,
That is
the
what I
reason it
said.
says not harassed, the reason it says not harassed is also in the Quran because it says that there are prostitutes. There are prostitutes that are obviously getting harassed by people. So that these women can separate themselves, not to look like them. That's it.
That's exactly what I said, except that I used
No,
the word
you said they are
accosted. I'm
recognized
terribly
as
sorry
Muslims.
that I did not use your preferred harassed, but I
No.
used accosted. If you
No,
can tell me that this
stop,
is not
stop.
synonymous, it's
No, no,
okay.
no.
All right, let's go
When
to
you say-
66.5.
No, hold on.
Maybe
Stop.
his
When you
Lord,
say
if he
someone recognized
divorced
as
you,
Muslim-
in other words, now, no, shut up. I'm
Stop.
talking about
When you- no, but hold on,
66.5
one
now.
second. You said something.
His
Let me address that.
Lord,
When you say so they are
in other words-
recognized as Muslims, you are trying to imply the hijab, the niqab, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas this particular verse is unequivocal about the very fact that it's only talking about separating yourself from the prostitutes so that you do not get harassed and mistaken for one of them. That is
okay,
it.
that's what I said. How many times are you going to repeat what I said?
That's not what you said, Stoff. Continue.
That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. 66.5. Maybe his Lord, if he divorce you, will give him in your place. And now remember, this is the God. And so if you go and you complain to your God and say, listen, I don't like my wives, what is this God going to do? He's going to divorce you and will give you in the place of this wife that he doesn't like, wives which are better than this wife that is complaining. And then
That has
this
a
wife that is
context too.
complaining will be replaced by a wife that is, this is now a better wife who is submissive, faithful, obedient, penitent, adorers, fasters, widows, and virgins. So this is the role model for
You've
a
added
woman
to
in
all of
Islam.
that. You've added to all of that. What
I
you keep doing,
copy-pasted
you're
this.
making
I
me
copy-pasted
straw man
this.
and then attacking your straw man. You keep literally creating an idea and then attacking the idea that you created. It's not in the Quran.
I
the thing
copy-pasted
is-
this from the Quran, from the translation of a Quran. Go and
No,
complain to
that's
your
the
God
last
that he
thing.
cannot provide a text that is clear, easy to understand, and without a doubt. Then
you
you
can't-
can come back to us.
Name the chapter and verse that's not clear.
But why is it everybody's translated it incorrectly and you've got it right? Why is it Asim Al-Hakim has got it wrong and you've got it right? Why is it everybody that sings a tune different to what you're saying has got it wrong, you've got it right, and all you are is just a guy that comes on this show on a Friday night? You should be going out there correcting the Muslim world, correcting
Okay,
all
Mr.
of the
Levy.
and this, I've never heard of you doing anything. I hear more from the Muslims that are saying what your right hand possesses is with reference to booty and spoils of war than what you've got to say.
All right, my friend, Mr. Levy or Cohen, whatever your name is. This is not about me. This is not about me or another individual Hold on. This is not about me or another individual. This is about facts that you can research. These words have definitions, dictionary definition that you can research. So try another one.
Your translators don't even know these words and dictionary definitions. Asim Al-Kim and all the scholars for dollars don't know these words and dictionary definitions. This is just a miracle of interpretation. That's
the argument you're making now is equivalent to saying that there is no such thing as an Arabic dictionary. That's ridiculous. Move on. Every single word you can look up yourself. You don't have to take my word. Look up Malakat. Look up Aymanukum. Good luck.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, thank you for that. We're going to move on. So what we've done is we've had now the top 11 sentences in the Quran. This is by no means every single one of them. Okay, there's dozens. This is just a selection that I have found, which I've just sorted according to the numbers, where this is obviously a display of misogyny in the Quran, and this is the basis for the way that women are treated in Islam. Now, I can go back to Sydney and say, and I can now look at the individual countries. How is this being done? How is this being implemented? How are women integrated into the society? But this is what I will see. This is the basis, because if you look at the jurisprudence, if you look at Sharia, it is based on the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is where everything comes from, and this is the basis.
I've noticed what you guys love to do is you love to have your little huddle without any Muslim whatsoever to refute and rebut the claims that you guys make, and then come up with all sorts of assertions. I guarantee you I can deal with every single claim that you make and every single verse that you put up there, and I guarantee you cannot find misogyny in the Quran.
I'm sure you could. The miracle of reinterpretation and the miracle of rhetorical devices, it's just infinite. So I'm sure you could do with your elaborate and creative imagination.
I could say the same to you. That's a dumb argument.
We're using your translation. We're using your Muslim translators. We're using your Muslim Quran and your Muslim scholars for dollars. When you've corrected correct us, why is it you're not going around going to Saudi Arabia and correcting all these people? Why haven't you written your own translation of the Quran, to correct all the other Qurans that are wrong?
There is plenty of translations. There are many translations that are better than these ones. But obviously, you're going to look for the controversial translations because that's where you get your bread and butter.
Maverick, which one do you use?
Sorry?
Which one do you use? Which translation?
To be honest, me personally, I'm much more familiar with the root words, so I don't depend on any particular translator.
Bullshit, people! You have not studied Quranic Arabic.
Why is it because it's difficult? No, why is that? Is it because
the Maverick? You're criticizing Maverick. You're criticizing everybody here for using the wrong translation, and then you say you don't use a translation.
Yeah, because I use the actual root words. I use something better than a translation because I use the root words. Those are the agreed upon definitions of every single word in Arabic. So I don't depend on a particular translator. I'm in a better position.
So all the translators are wrong and you're right.
No, I'm not. Hold on. First and foremost, please don't caricature this as me trying to say, listen to what I say. I've specifically said you can look up every single claim and every single word yourself. You don't have to take anything I say.
I can't wait.
What I've done. That's why what I've put on the screen, everything here has been scrutinized. Everything is straight from the Quran translations.
I can't wait to get on Joel Carnane,
There's so many things. Come on, you can prove Ahmed wrong in millions of ways, but he is never going to accept it. He is going to twist and fight and do. And
no, it's a miracle.
Ahmed, I'm telling it into your face. You are not an honest person. I'm sorry to have to tell you this.
Fine, as long as you can prove it.
I'm not taking you seriously at all.
As long as you can prove it, stops.
The only thing that I can prove it. I've seen it today. Okay.
Maverick, it's not just us that are using those translations. It's most Muslims in the whole world use more of those translations. So you're saying that basically all the Muslims are wrong as well?
Yes, that's what he's saying. That's what
I'll be honest with you. Okay, check this out. At least this guy, he's sensible. Let me answer him, please. Yeah. Basically, most Muslims are either Sunni or Shia. So when the Quran was translated, it was translated to basically encompass the narrative of the hadiths. So they don't have any complaints whatsoever. As far as they're concerned, everything that they read in the Quran correlates with what they have from their hadiths. So they're not actually too concerned with whether they are being whether they're being given false information. Because if they consider the fact that they are being given false information, then they're gonna have to doubt their hadiths. And most of them don't want to do that. I'll be honest with you. Most supposed Muslims, as a matter of fact, most religious people, they just follow the herd. They don't actually, most of them have not done their own research and come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, but you're talking about Muslims since the birth of Islam. You're talking about some of these translations are accepted going back 1,000 years, and yet suddenly you've come along and it's like, no, that's all wrong. I've got the right answer.
Okay, first and foremost, please stop caricaturing me like this. This is not me.
What you're saying.
Okay. All right, hear me out. First and foremost, all right. In Arabic, there's something called a root word system, meaning every word comes from a particular root word, and there's a particular system that they follow. For example, every Arabic word has basically many synonyms which define that word. And the correct synonym depends on the context that you are using that word in. Now,
it's also not true. Why are you saying things that are not true?
Maverick, even if that's true. Maverick, even if that's not true.
No, just let me finish.
The result of what you're saying is, Maverick, just hold on a second. The logical consequence of what you're saying is that every Muslim who translated it in the most widely accepted translations are wrong.
Yes. Everybody
can say whatever they want. That's
listen,
bullshit.
thinking clearly. It is not a secret. This is a well-known fact that the translations have been doctored to encompass the hadiths. It's a well-known fact. Like I'll give you a quick example. If you're to go
No, I don't want examples. I don't want to go into the language of the Quran. We are talking about misogyny. I do not want these kind of discussions at the moment, here and now. There is a time and place for everything. This is not a free-rolling show. This is not a 12-hour stream where you can go and just carry on for an hour. We are over our time already. We are discussing misogyny and not the language of the Quran.
No, but why did you not stop him when he was asking the question? Like, at least have some class with your biasness, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but Maverick, you're not answering my question. You're not answering my question. You're going off on some tangent.
I'm trying to, but I keep getting interrupted.
Yeah, but I don't need a 20-minute diversion. It's a straight
20 minutes. I was spoken for less than a minute and I got interrupted, bro. I'll make it very simple for you. Look, the Quran has not been translated according to the Arabic language. If you go to any scholar today,
is that it?
If you go to any scholar today, if you go to any
they'll disagree with you.
I had less than a minute, bro. Like, can I get 60 seconds, please?
No, we don't have another 60 seconds. We are already over our time. We are discussing misogyny and not the language of the Quran. This is about misogyny.
That much? You have to interrupt me every time.
Yes,
really?
Because you are giving us examples, diverting, and trying to screw everything up.
You just want to have a huddle and go there.
I don't have to do this again. All right. I'm sorry, why so religious that you didn't get on now. The thing is, we are talking about too many things. I think we spent too much time in the first hour talking about bullshit than sticking to what the theme actually is, and that is misogyny. So the point that we have made in the month of February is that the Quran, that Islam is highly misogynistic. That
yes, and if anyone says otherwise,
treat it in an equal way. We have given examples over examples and all sorts of references to different areas in the text, and it doesn't matter whether it's Quran or the Sunnah or any kind of text that we have found to show that there is misogyny in the Quran.
And if anyone says otherwise, you're going to interrupt.
That is what we came here to show in the month of February, and that is what we've done. Ahmed, I mean, I enjoy if we have Muslims here who can give us a
No, you
kind
don't.
of
We're just gonna speak over
instance,
them.
an intelligent reply, and not what you are doing, a
And who
dishonest
decides what?
diversion of everything
Let me
that we
guess.
are
You
saying
decide what
that
intelligent reply
doesn't
is.
work.
You dictate everything stops, right? You dictate which is the correct answer, intelligent answer, acceptable answer. You just dictate everything based on how you feel, correct?
Now, in Sahih Muslim, book 19, number 4292, for the hadith
Why would
of
you tell
the
me about
week,
Sahih Muslim? You know I
Ibn
don't accept
Aun
that.
reported, the Messenger of Allah made a raid upon Banu Mustalik, while they were unaware and the cattle were having a drink at the water.
This
Now,
is
this
weak
is the
beyond
instance
belief.
where there was a woman where she was 20 and the daughter of the chief of the tribe, and to achieve freedom as opposed to captive slave, she accepted the proposal, and she was 20 and Muhammad was 58. And she accepted him as lover and husband, even though she had just lost father and husband at the hands of the Muslims. So what Sahih Muslim in book 19 says, he killed those who fought and imprisoned others. On that very day, he captured Juwariya bint al-Harith. This is the hadith of the week.
Sorry, stop. That's a mistranslation.
Yes.
We're so weak. Why don't you all have a little huddle? We're Muslims are like that. Because you don't want to be challenged.
Are there any real translations?
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Listen,
let me
we're
tell
going
you.
offline now. We can still chat, but we're going offline because the show is over the time. We don't want to spend 12 hours talking about the individual words on the
You
Quran.
mean you don't
The
want to be
idea was
exposed?
that we were talking about
You
misogyny
only
in
want
the
to talk when
Quran,
there
and
is
we
no
have
Muslim.
more than
I've
shown
noticed.
the misogyny.
I've noticed you guys,
Thank
either
you
there is
very
no
much,
Muslim
and we'll
or
see
there's
you
an
next week
uneducated
when we
Muslim.
are going to be talking
Who you lot love?
about prophecies. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for the chat. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I honestly can't
We will
believe
see you
how
next week.
Mo,
so
thank you for coming on the show. It's been a privilege.